I'm going to show you how your dyslexic child may be seeing letters and words, why they get the same words wrong over and over again, which I know is maddening for you, and how to fix it. Let's take a look at some letters before we even look at words that dyslexic and people with visual processing challenges often confuse. D, B, P, and Q. When I was in 3rd grade, I stayed back because I could not read and I'm dyslexic. They looked identical to me. These 4 made me cry because they all had, as one of my students said to me, Keith, they're all a stick and a ball. There's a stick and a ball, stick and a ball, stick and a ball. If you invert it, they're the same. If you flip it, they're the same. Be aware of these. M and W. M and W are inverse of each other. There's an M. The other thing about M that makes it problematic is it can have an R in it. Do you see the R? Or it can be 2 N's to the children. T and J. So many of the fonts have a curve down here at the bottom of the T, and the T doesn't go all the way up. It looks like a J. They're interchangeable. H and N, as what my kids call the stick, is simply shorter. They are identical shapes, except this doesn't go up as high. F and T and T and T. I have these here as an example of what happens with certain letters when you put them together. They're connecting here. They're connecting. The children have a hard time with this, the dyslexic children and children that have challenges with visual processing, because they all look like one structure, right? That just stops them in their tracks. V, U, and N all have the basic same shape, right? However, the N, you guys can see what's happening by now, right? The U and the N are inverse of each other. They're the same. A, we told them in kindergarten, this is an a ball with this little stick thing. And then all of a sudden this creature emerged. What in the world is that, right? They have a hard time with that. When they finally do start to process it, it flips because it's an upside down G. So these are a few letters to be aware of. Now, how do they play out in words? Well, so many of you have children that look at how and say now. They look at them, they say her. They look at who, they say how. Why is that? Well, that H looks like an N, especially if there's not a letter in front of it to show that that's sticking up, right? So if there's a letter in front, what the kids call a short letter, that H sticks up. But a lot of times when the H is in the front of a word, it becomes an N. How becomes now, them becomes her. I know this is maddening for some of you. They can't process this T because many fonts just don't take it all the way up and it's a J. They go to the H, but it's an H now because it's in the middle. If the H is in the front, it often becomes an N. If it's in the interior of a word, it stays an H. So they see the H first and they say, and they see the he, and they're like, this is he. This word is he. If your child went to a school where they use sight words instead of phonics, often they will identify a smaller word within the word, but they've still got to process the M. This is an R. So them becomes her. They look at them, they see her. Who becomes how because all the letters are there. The WH is hard to process. If we move the H up front, who becomes how. So when they look at these words, they're actually seeing these words, which is frustrating to you. Now remember, stick with me. I'm going to show you how to fix all of this. That's just a small example of letters and words that dyslexics can flip and invert. And the thing is, once they process it incorrectly, once they look at how and say now, then how, H-O-W, is now in their minds, right? I call that coding, right? They actually remember the wrong word to go with the little marks that they're not straightening out. We're going to fix all of that. I just want you to know your child isn't trying to make your brain explode when they look at the word for and say of, because that O pops out first at them, then they process the F, and for becomes of. The list is very long, and some of you right now are thinking of words that, yeah, my child's had this word wrong for years. I'm going to show you how to fix that. You're going to use touch, repetition, rhythm, focus, and phonics to fix this. Okay, I call these inline corrections. You're not going to make a word list or a drill list. You're going to correct as soon as it happens, whether it's in a book, math book, word problem, wherever it happens, you're going to pounce on that word. So your little girl sits down and goes, get her out of here. Them has become her. Here's the drill. First, they go, them. They physically touch. I'm not pointing, I'm physically touching. Physical touch is important. I could do a half-hour video on why that is for these drills, but in this case, just trust me, they've got to touch the paper. Now, in the beginning, you're going to have to take her finger and guide her and teach her them. That's step one. Step two is pointing to each letter and saying the name. T-H-E-M. We want the T to be a T, not a J. The H to be an H, not an N. The E to be an E, not an O. And the M to be an M, not an R or two N's. That's an M. So, T-H-E-M. Third step, phonetically work it out while moving your finger. Them. Make sure your child is touching just under the word, not on the word. Phonological awareness means these letters make sounds. It won't help us if he's covering up as he's making the sounds. Fourth step, put it in the sentence. Get them out of here. Don't let them blow you off because they really want to think about who would win in a war, Hulk or Thor, right? So they'll sit right next to you and you got to make sure it's them doing it, not your finger, their finger. And you don't want them. No, hon. I want them. And you don't want T-H-E, no, you want T-H-E-M, them. Let's look at this one. He likes supper. Dyslexic kids that have difficulty with processing, have difficulty with what I call double consonants. Summer, like the two M's look odd. Success, difference, two consonants together. So a lot of times what they do is they'll just guess. They'll see this strange structure and they'll just guess. So I wanted you to see a multisyllabic word because it's two touches. Summer. That's right, step one. Okay, so now this is your child's hand because you've trained them. Summer. But you might have to help him. Summer. Hey, Joe, it's summer. His eyes are looking at some. His eyes are looking at mer. We know they are because the finger is touching. Summer. S-U-M-M-E-R, summer. And this phonetic slide is important because if he goes summer, he's wrong. And you reach in and say, some. See that? Summer. He liked summer. Now, sometimes they'll still get it wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. Many of the children I work with have something called impaired executive function. Children with impaired executive function often have diminished cognitive flexibility. They simply can't change their idea about a topic or an event as easily as they should. It's very difficult for them to transfer from one activity to another. So putting the Legos down to go to soccer practice may not go so well. When it comes to reading, it's hard for them to look at a group of letters and symbols, because that's what they are, that they've said that this group of letters and symbols is one word or sound, and it's actually another one. It's a different one. That's hard for them. And if you know that, it will enable you to understand why you have to do the things I'm asking you to do to get them to change their ideas about letters and sounds. It can be done. Let's stop in on a little girl that has some cognitive and processing challenges that has been using this drill for 2 weeks. She's now running it on her own. Her mother doesn't have to touch her hand, and she's changing a word. The correct word is thump, but she said thud. And I bet you can even figure out why. That D and that PD flip back and forth, but now she's fixing it.
Thump, 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 T-H-U-M-P, thump.
I wanted you to see her fix this next word because it's multisyllabic and you can see her eyes and her finger tracking the syllables.
Fed their brain, fed their brain, fed their brain.
And then all together.
Fed their brain.
Touch each syllable 3 times. Touch each letter. Phonetically work it out with touch. Put it back in the sentence. It works amazingly well. In the descriptions below, you will find information about my online course. To learn more about how I use touch to teach neurodiverse students how to read, please check out this video. And of course, please subscribe. Remember, children that learn differently must be taught differently.